Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions. We can answer them all. Today, we discuss something truly special. I've had a lot of RM11s, RM05s, RM10s, and I love them all. But at its apex, Richard Mille is about the truly gonzo watch. And in 2005, it launched this truly gonzo watch, the RM004 split seconds chronograph. Built by Audemars Piguet Renault Papy, this is one of the premier class RMs alongside the tourbillons and high complications, something with a movement built expressly for RM in the company's iconic tonneau case. This is a no-compromise watch from a no-compromise watch maker. It's also made of white gold, which is a little bit different, giving it some weight. I measure it 39 millimeters from side to side, not including the crown, and from lug tip to lug tip, 48.1 millimeters with a thickness of 15.4 millimeters, throwing it on the wrist. The first thing I want to mention is that the case back is dramatically cambered and curved. See this curve? That mitigates fit issues. Easy to wear despite its size and its weight. You can see that the lugs are actually inboard of the edge of my wrist on both sides. So I can wear this easy, and I even think you could wear this on a slightly smaller wrist. So let's say 15 centimeter circumference wrists and up. This is 16. You can see it really does look quite good. It's not going to fit underneath the cuff, especially with the outcropping of the chronograph triggers, but who cares? This is not a watch you wear to make it disappear. We have a strap. It is calfskin. It is an RM factory piece, and like most RM straps, it is physically anchored, so you can't easily pop it out. Calfskin on the bottom. Note that this strap is partially bonded and partially stitched. So we have stitching down towards the end, and then we have bonding closer to the top. So the stitching is primarily out of sight, probably used for greater durability on the underside where the perforations are located and it interfaces with the clasp. Everything else here you can see has been bonded for a seamless look, so there's no stitching on the top side. We have G&F Chatelain's well-known titanium leaf spring deployant clasp, which gives you a lot of security against accidental deployment that you don't normally get on a clasp that doesn't have trigger release. Taking a look, you can see the buckle features polish, satination, and media blasting, 3 different finishes on the buckle, with the company's signature spline screws, which can also be seen assembling the sandwich-like case construction, with columns that run from bezel all the way to case back. Now you can see the bezel's polished around its outer lip, and then on the top it features satination that runs from top to bottom, vertical satination within the recesses of the case flank, polished and shouldered chronograph pushers. We have a media blasted titanium crown with a rubber collar, and then on the dial side a cambered and shaped sapphire. And in spite of the fact that it has one of those are always difficult to make water resistant. This is still rated at 50 meters and recently serviced. Taking a look at the dial, you can see there's actually 2 sapphires. There's the one over the dial, and then there's another one on which all of the chronograph scales, complication scales, and numerals are printed. There's also a carbon fiber flange that runs around the outside of the dial, and you'll note it has a tachymeter scale that can be used with the chronograph for gauging the speed of an object, such as a race car around a kilometer course. RM, of course, Richard Mille the man would love that comparison because he loves his race cars. And then you can see that each one of these little indices is also luminescent. We'll do a lume shot. It's not a super powerful aggregation of lume, but it is enough to read the time. Below that lower level sapphire, you could see what's actually the base plate of the movement. So this is made of carbon composite. The very earliest versions of this caliber RM004 had a titanium base plate, but the V2s and the V3s, and this is a V2, they used that carbon fiber base plate, which was sort of the next step forward. You could see up at the top we have a power reserve indicator for the manual wind 70-hour power reserve, and then on the other side we have a torque indicator. And you basically want to just keep that as close to the red as possible without actually going too far over. But if you take a close look, you can see it features its own separate bridge structure for those 2 indicators with underlying levers, springs, and cams. So you've got those complications, an unusual pair. And then you move down a little bit further and you can see the multifunction indicator for the multifunction crown, a long-running Audemars Piguet Renault Papy feature that made its way to the RM models built by them. You can see in the neutral position the crown does nothing, then you pull it out one position and now you're winding, and then you pull it out again and that is heure, or setting, the hour. And there we go, just like that. We have a running seconds display down at the base, and then we have a chronograph minutes register over at 9 o'clock. We have a set of springs and bridges for the motion work on this side, and you can see that there are intermediate wheels that communicate the motion of the crown to the minute wheel pinion, and the hour wheel at center. And then we have the split-second chronograph functionality. That's your start-stop. That's your reset. And then this is to split the hands. And the hands are made of titanium due to a phenomenon involving the hands actually magnetizing the underlying movement during flyback action. RM later transitioned this movement to titanium hands, which do not have the same properties as ferrous hands that cause the magnetized phenomena. And you can see right there how that works. So you can split the seconds and decide whether the interval between two concurrent events is waxing or waning. Again, think two cars around a track and whether the gap between them is growing or shrinking each time around. Notice the hands at center are partially media blasted and partially polished for better contrast against the dial base, and you can see the bridge for the motion works has been fully brushed and satinated on its top with all screw heads polished. On the back, things are even more spectacular. You could see we have the little pincer system at center for the split seconds mechanism. You can see 2 column wheels. This is the split second column wheel, and then this is the master column wheel for starting and stopping the whole movement. There is a bridge underneath that sits on top of the base plate, and depending on whether you have a V2 or a V3, that bridge is either aluminum or titanium. I believe on this one the bridge is made of aluminum, blackened aluminum. You can see we have a full dual anchored balance bridge to add greater shock resistance, plus a free sprung balance for greater shock resistance. Still, the free sprung balance also allowing for very precise regulation, and this is regulated in a chronometer style 5 positions. There's also an overcoil hairspring so that it will breathe concentrically and keep consistent time in any physical position relative to gravity. That's the advantage of an overcoil. And this is a 31 joule movement. It is incredibly complicated, intricate. There's a reason why the really premier RM pieces are made by APRP, and that's because they've got the ability to do it, and they are state-of-the-art in this regard. The pieces, though they are primarily two-tone, silver or black, are nicely hand-finished, so you do get an element of haute horlogerie, bienfaiteur, in this watch. You can see 50 meters water-resistant, white gold, and the case made by Valgine, which is both case maker and stakeholder for Richard Mille. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.